over just our exploration into how simple, relatively easy it is if you want to create your own botnet or your own remote administration tool. Can you? It's not moving. Awesome.
Let's do the disclaimer.
Okay. Hold on. Sorry, the computer decided to think all of a sudden. Let's see. The whole time. Want to switch laptops? Okay, there it goes, okay. Excellent, so here's a quick disclaimer of what we're talking about. Looks like it's not showing up on this side. This is great, honestly. This is kind of like whatever people talk about, the live demonstration gremlin, or other people say like your demo gods or so. Everything works perfect in your home lab. Whenever you get up here to talk, things just go bonkers. But anyway, here are some things that we're going to cover. We won't go over every single bullet because it will become obvious what we cover in the following slides. But unfortunately, we have our live demonstration gremlin. Hopefully it does not show up for the remainder of the presentation. Go ahead, can you click? All right, I'll turn it over to Nick.
So one of the things that we're going to talk about with our botnets is, we kind of came across this idea of designing our own botnet because it was a motivation we had. We wanted to basically demonstrate that the best defense is a good offense. So we put our black hat hacker on. And the motivation is easy to see when you look at news groups that are flooded with data on malware, on how there's over 403 million different unique malware variants, an increase of over 36% in 2011. So, I mean, there's a lot of demand for network defense and intrusion detection systems. And when we take a look at botnets in particular, one of the things that you'll look is there's a wide confidence interval between when they're detected and when action actually takes place. And the reason why there's such a wide confidence interval is because they're used on various scales. Some aren't used a lot, some are used a ton, some are very simple, and others are very sophisticated. But when you look at 43 days, you're not even talking about 0 hours or 0 days, you're talking about 0 weeks, 0 months. And that's a lot of time to be able to have indiscriminate access to a particular system, especially with the botnet. So as we thumb through these slides with our little propagation delay, the idea that we're trying to sell is that network defense is behind. It will always be behind. If you get 1,000 defenders and one attacker, the attacker always has the advantage because they dictate the battlefield. They tell you, they have the element of surprise. So the idea is to truly know how to attack allows us to better ways to develop ways to defend against it. So, and we're going to fly through this because our original presentation took over 2.5 hours. We only have like 40 minutes. So locate your nearest available black hat, put it on now. Let's begin the pwnage. Yeah, we could. I mean, it's up to you if you want to do it on the fly. Solar, you want to talk about loading up the hacker's toolbox? Like if we wanted a botnet, what are some of the advantages or disadvantages of using ones, leasing ones? I mean, we could build, or we could lease or acquire one, but I mean, would you want to buy one? Would you want to lease one? What are your thoughts?
I prefer to develop it myself.
And the reason why is simple, because if you're going to buy one or use one that's well known, there's probably a signature for it. It's probably something that's already been detected by AV. It's something that's not going to be as effective because there's already a defense against it. The motivation for building and designing your own botnet is the fact that you create your own 0 day. You are unique up until the point of detection. So as pen testers, what do we want to do if we want to launch the latest and greatest? We create our own. We're problem solvers. That's the hacker mentality, right? Turn a couple knobs, flip a few switches, and see what we get. So as we continue on, I'm probably going to fly through this. I mean, most of us are already familiar with the characteristics of a botnet are. Probably the biggest one is arbitrary remote code execution to allow the controller, your bot master, to have command and control over a particular set of infected machines, or what we're going to call implants. I'm going to use some vocabulary, and when we talk about the controller, that is you, the bot master, whereas the implants are the infected agents. Remote code execution is the pivot and allows commands to be sent, passed back and forth. It allows you to survive and persist. It allows you to evade detection, and allows you to morph over time so that you can continue to become unknown and undetected. And then a couple of things that we're going to show you are some of the features of a botnet, which we're really excited, is obviously the ability to pass files back and forth, capture screens, enumerate a system. One of the coolest things we're going to show you, which we're working with Mudge on with Armitage, is Orbiter Payload Directory, the automated data exfiltration, so that you can fire and forget, specify what kind of particular files you're looking at, so that when a user saves or updates that particular kind of file, our botnet automatically detects and exfiltrates that back to you. So that's one of the many features that we're developing. So just be patient with me as I flip through these stats because I have to actually predict and give it 5 seconds to go. So I'm going to go back one slide for Solo to cover something in particular.
I'm sorry about that. I'm going to have to switch laptops. Is it okay if we switch real quick?
Cool. All right.
I really apologize about that. I don't know what's going on, but
Flexibility is the key, so let's go ahead and do it.
let's go ahead and see how that goes. Would you unplug the USB from that?
There you go.
Okay, can you see it? You can see us okay, but okay. Okay, so we'll just continue. I really apologize about that. So what initial knowledge do you need whenever you're going to create your own remote administration tool in your command and control? Well, first we're going to talk about client-server model, just understanding who's the client and who's the server whenever you're extending communications across the socket. The next is socket programming. That's kind of crucial. Anytime you're discussing information across an IP-based network and you have two systems, one's talking to another, that communication conduit that we're exchanging bytes across is your socket. So it's just simply understanding how do I instantiate sockets and how do I send information across the socket so we can actually know when am I going to execute commands from this connection. And then overview of remote procedure calls. That's exactly what we're doing. Whenever we're sending a command from one machine, we're marshaling that statement to another computer, we're executing that command, and then we're sending it back to us, back to our main controller bot. And now we're able to understand what is executing on that infected machine. The next one we'll discuss is multi-threaded applications. Any single time I have more than one communication coming into my socket or more than one communication coming into my controller, I'm going to hand that in multiple worker threads so I can continue to make the program run and I can see what the implant is doing. Next, use of worker threads. We'll move on. Overview of Windows registries, because our main exploitation right now is working on Windows because it's kind of taboo to go against Linux. Why not? Also, file transfer protocols and simply understanding how do I want to be able to exchange bytes from one system to the other? Because instead of using your main file transfer protocol that has set commands, your puts, your gets, your posts, instead of using your main file transfer protocol, how can we create our own file transfer protocol? So if you have an intrusion detection system looking for FTP, how about we just create our own file transfer? So that's exactly what we take care of in our communication, and also native commands so we can map the infected computer system.
Most of us are already familiar with the anatomy of an attack using Nmap, using Nessus, scanning the network, finding out what hosts are live, finding vulnerabilities. So when we show you these demonstrations, it's going to be post-Happy Dance era where we create the foothold, establish our stealth and persistence, and pwn and pillage for the win. So I just want to discuss and put it up there that, you know, we recognize the anatomy of attack. We take a systematic scientific method approach so that when we actually do this, it's no different than anything else. We're looking for exploitation. We're looking for a vulnerability, whether it's through social means or, you know, going on a Windows XP box pre-Service Pack 3 and launching an RCP DCOM through Metasploit. I mean, the sky's the limit. There's a lot of creativity. When I talked about earlier with our vocabulary, I just wanted to put this up there so that you understand and don't get confused. The controller is our actual bot master, which is going to maintain one or more connections, and that's going to be what we use to pass commands back and forth. The dropper and the implant, which will have a pictogram so that we can show you, is actually what we use to get through that crunchy hard shell to get to the soft caramel chewy center, and the implant is essentially the listener agent on the infected machine, and it's very lightweight. There's a lot of characteristics which we'll go over here in a second. But Solo, help walk me through this play-by-play. It's Sunday, and we got football going on, but we have a different style. So what do we have? A little Mario reference dropper for you. This is what happens. So talk us through. We've got this dropper. What's going on here?
Yeah, so initially, whenever you want to infect a computer system, the way we go about our exploitation is you have your dropper that initially gets into that computer, it exploits the box, and then configures the system for implant exploitation. Then it reaches up to our controller's domain, it downloads the implant, it installs the implant, and now the implant executes and carries out the main communication to the controller. So as you see, the dropper got into the system and installs the implant. The dropper then goes away and removes its presence, and now the implant maintains persistence to the main infection box.
Now the one thing, and I'll just back up real quick, this is kind of a precursor to what we're going to talk about with the relays, which we're not going to demo, but the idea is the victim box is reaching out to the controller. It's outbound communication. It's less restrictive. You guys know when you're working with firewalls and bastion hosts and proxies that the outbound communication is less restrictive. We do that for a purpose because we ran into that issue when we actually tried to demo that ourselves. And we actually provide you a utility, more or less a fill in the blank, which you can't really see if you're in the back, but the idea is fill in the details similarly that you would specify the options in Metasploit when you select your payload, and then you fill in the information, then we actually create through a VBS script to give you the code that's actually going to be run, and we comment it too. If I have my little laser pointer here, I want to show what you probably can't see with this middle section here, enable persistence. This is going to tie into down here the Windows registry. This is if in the event that we lose connectivity and the victim machine reboots, it'll still beacon out and establish a connection back to the controller. And even more so is our spoof header. And the reason why we do this is if you've got a network administrator or a sysadmin watching Wireshark or any other network protocol analyzer, you want to be able to obfuscate your traffic. So if they opt to open up a TCP stream, it looks like legitimate HTTP traffic from Mozilla Firefox. So it's just another way to kind of give you that additional stealth and persistence on the network. So I'll turn it back over to Solo so we can actually talk about the graphical user interface of what our remote administration tool, our RAT splinter, looks like.
Thanks, Nick. Okay, so here's just a quick an overview of what the GUI looks like. We'll continue because we'll do a demonstration at the end and be able to walk you through how to use the interface. So what is Splinter to the RAT is actually it's post-exploitation. So as soon as you initially gain access to the box and you want to maintain a foothold into the system, then you install our implant and it connects out to our controller so it can take control of multiple implants that are installed into that computer system. And initially we made it to work with Netcat because everyone is familiar with Netcat, yes? So that was like a few updates ago. It should still be compatible with Netcat. We just have to go back and try because we created additional functionality with our own implants. And we also created implants with Python and also Java. And the ones that we're showing here is Java, since it's a pretty good language if you just want to do tutorials on. And Splinter comes to life as soon as you gain initial entry into the system. We do geolocation. It's not precise, but at least if you wanted some eye candy and you want to just know where are my implants coming from, if you click on the implant at the bottom, you click on Google Map, you'll be able to see which location can we resolve that implant connected to. So that was initially how do you set up the system and how would you actually get your implants to connect over to the controller. Now let's talk about initially how do you set up your connections to begin with. So the first thing we want to do is open a socket, open a server socket and bind it to a port. Binding a server socket to the port allows me to receive multiple connections at once. As soon as I receive a connection, that's step number 2, establish your connection. I open reader and writer streams on that socket. This allows me to exchange information across the socket between the controller and the infected implant machine. Then, since we just have a new socket established, I now instantiate various worker threads to actually be able to listen to bytes that are exchanged across the socket and execute the various commands that are received. After that, I want to package and send commands between the controller and the implant. We'll do more slides on that in the next one to come. And then we go into the tokenization or parsing of the commands. That allows us to determine what command did I receive, what am I going to execute, and how am I going to send the responses back to the controller. And then simply understand how to pipe those responses to the controller once we receive it. So a good way to understand, I think, sending information across the socket is to have things in threes. The first one is your command header. That simply lets you know what command am I receiving. The next is your delimiter. Your delimiter is just a series of, you cannot see the red. Delimiter is just a series of special characters that is known only between my controller and the implant. So now I can parse multiple commands across that same socket. And then finally, the arguments. What exact command do I want it to execute once I just receive statements across the socket? Now, your next question is, okay, we're doing a test. We just, from the controller, send it over to the implant. Execute this command. Go ahead and ping Google or return a shell. Do whatever it is that we're telling you to do. Your next question to answer is, okay, how exactly do we get our arbitrary code execution to work on our infected machine? And that's, let's introduce process instantiation, but also what we found with many nights of hard work was our process conundrum. So whenever you actually get a command and I want to execute a command on that infected machine, you're actually going to instantiate new processes. However, each process that you create and say, okay, go ahead and execute this command, you have information that is returned across two different streams. You have a standard out stream and then a standard error stream. So we'll explain this by example. If you're on your current terminal and you say dir or ls, okay, it will return you a listing from your current working directory. However, if you type in incorrect command and you say enter, you see an error message that says, unable to execute this command or so. You're actually receiving information across two different streams that's returned to you in one terminal. Now, a problem whenever you're actually executing commands on a remote machine is that if you do not read the right stream properly, another stream can be buffered while your system is still waiting to receive information from another stream that no information is being returned on first. So with your two issues, one is if too much information is buffered at once, your actual program can freeze, or can block, or can actually error because you haven't been able to exhaust that stream in time for your actual program to give you more statements. Another problem is if I'm waiting to receive information across the wrong stream first, my program is simply going to sit there and not move on. So now your next question is, which stream do I read first? How exactly do we go about being able to get my code execution to work on that remote machine? And the answer is, it depends on the language that you're programming in. In Java, we actually instantiate separate worker threads to read each stream simultaneously. So as soon as we read each stream simultaneously, we buffer that information across the same socket, and then we send it over to the controller. In Python is so much simpler, and Python is beautiful. It's like everyone should say, hooray, Python. Because in Java, we needed at least two different classes to handle my simultaneous streams of reading. In Python, all I need to do is simply say, pipe your standard out and your standard error to the same stream, and whatever I receive, I'm going to send it over to the controller. So it's pretty simple in how to do that. Another issue, I think I'll just cover the last one, is since we instantiate various threads to handle each process or each code, each command that you sent to the implant, since each of these is executing in different threads, your next question is, okay, how do I send all of that information back to the controller? Because, again, since we're doing various processes, various commands, each process is going to finish its commands. Each process will provide you information differently. So in some instances, we work in parallel, because parallel is so much efficient that as soon as I get a command, execute the command. Whenever you send the information back to me, I'm going to render it over onto the controller. Another issue you can run into is if you do this too much and you have like a series of commands to execute at once, your information is going to come in the wrong order, simply based on your propagation delay across getting your information from your implant to your controller. So in some instances, we actually buffer the responses first, and then we send it over to the controller in series. Just two things to be aware of. So we're actually going to do a demo right here, but in terms of time, we'll just continue. We have maybe 3 or 4 more slides, and then we'll get a demo to come. But don't worry, it's coming. It's coming.
So we talk about knowing the victim architecture. I mentioned earlier about how inbound connections coming from the internet through the firewall generally just does not work. And so when we ran into this issue, we thought to ourselves, okay, well, how can we overcome this? So the inbound connection, since it's always denied, we figured, well, what if we just go and exploit the outbound connection and then establish, essentially the HTTP GET request that you would be to utilize your command and control. So basically the idea and the takeaway from this is we're going to have these outbound connections connect to a relay and then use these relays, which you can daisy chain and have multiple ones, as a way to pass commands back and forth. So that was hence the function creep of our relay bot, so that we can actually get around this issue that we have with the firewalls. So what do we got 2 modes. We have the proxy and the bridge, both of which we use. And we generally use which one are we going to use today for the demo? We're going to do proxy, I guess. I'm just going to pick with that. So each inbound connection goes to an implant, and then the relay bot establishes an outbound socket for the controller. So I want to try and get to the demo here portion, but just as a play-by-play, we start off with the victim box, which we already have our implant on. It's going to go to the relay, all right, and then it's going to backward, obviously, and transmit data, and then the relay is going to reach out to the controller, and there lies our command and control pwn, which can't really, well, good, it's blocked. It's blocked text so that the pwned in red still shows up. How wonderful. So pretty good. Everyone following? Good. I like head nods. So Solo, talk me through the bridge, because we're not actually going to do this one. We're going to do the proxy, but the bridge is really cool too.
Yeah, the bridge is more robust than the proxy that we just showed. And as Nick was saying, we're actually doing a penetration test on a large network. And so we're able to get our implants on 2 machines sitting next to each other, but we cannot establish one to be our foothold to hold files and to do our bridging for us on that same network. So what happens as penetration testers or as attackers? Whenever you're trying to exploit a system and you're blocked, you're denied, you say, oh no, you did not just deny me. So you're like, challenge accepted. So that's exactly what we did. We created the relay bot to actually exploit the outbound connections that are allowed usually through your enterprise firewalls, so that everyone is going to establish an outbound connection to our main relay system. That relay system will find the controller, it will find other observers, and now we can still have our direct command and control simply by exploiting outbound connections on your computer system. So here we are. You have your implant is installed and infected onto your victim box. Can I use the clicker?
Go ahead.
Oh, it's here. Okay, thanks. Okay, so as soon as you have your infection, right here, your controller is not able to connect out to your victim box. So what happens, your victim box establishes his outbound connection to the relay system. Your controller then establishes his outbound connection to the relay. And for completeness, we have another controller at this side who establishes his outbound connection to your relay system as well. The next thing is the controller sends a command to the relay for this implant to execute this command. And for this instance, we're saying, okay, actually send me this file that I know is resident on this victim box. The relay intellectually sends the command to the right agent and say, okay, execute this command, but also echoes the command to the other controller saying, this is the command that was just received. We do this because you definitely do not want any controller commanding another controller, because you all are the controllers. You don't want somebody else to have taken control of your botnet and now they're making your computer run in ways you not intended. That would be sad panda. So after that, the actual infected machine, it reads the file, it grabs the information that you just sent it, then it contacts the relay to say, okay, what am I supposed to do with the file you just told me to do? The file you just told me to grab. And then the relay system says, okay, forward it back to the controller. So that's how you receive the final file at the controller. And then an echo command is sent to the observer saying, okay, this file was just sent to the controller. Now, we want to talk about maintaining persistence onto the network just very briefly. This inspiration actually came from Raphael Mudge, and he was talking yesterday, and about 2 days ago, he put out a video from Twitter saying, okay, here's how we establish a beacon bot. Here's how we actually do, temporary connections into your network. Because persistent connections can raise an alert to your network defender saying, okay, why do I have a persistent connection to this system that lasts over and over and over again? Instead, is it possible to temporarily establish a connection, execute commands, upload the responses, and then sever your connection again? Perhaps this connection is over a day. Perhaps this connection is over a week. It could be over a month, because the low and steady usually wins the race and also evades detection. So here are some steps on how we actually incorporate a beacon bot into our Splinter the Rat system. So initially, you have your victim box that your victim box that is infected with our implant. It registers to the controller saying, okay, I am active, I am live. The controller then sends an acknowledgement, and then your implant actually goes to sleep for some time. How are the pictograms? Are they okay? Are they helpful? Yeah? Okay. All right, so we'll continue. So as soon as the victim box sleeps for his extended amount of time, whichever time you specify as the controller, he wakes and then he checks in with the controller and saying, okay, are there new commands that I'm supposed to execute? If there are new commands on the controller sends it back saying, okay, execute this command or provide a shell. And so as soon as the victim box receives the new command, it provides the shell back to the controller. Automated data exfiltration. This is the last one, and then we should have our demo right after that. Something we wanted to incorporate into our botnet is to always be able to sit back and just let good files come back to the controller. So in this instance, we actually notified the implants to monitor a specified directory. And anytime new files are dropped by the user, or new files are modified, saved by the user, we're automatically going to grab those files and send it back to the controller. So you can imagine how sensitive this is if you're looking at a special company, and in this location, they always upload like all of their, let's say, news articles before it's posted. Or if someone's looking at certain names, all of this files and these data are stored in this data server or are stored in this location. Well, how about I simply just wait until you put something in that file and then grab it back to me and send it back to us automatically? So that's what we implement in our orbiter payload. Here's one more pictogram. So here we are. You establish the implant. It starts orbiting the directory that you specify from the controller. As soon as new files are detected, the implant, based on what you told it, will look at every single file that is there. The files that are not used are sent back to the controller. But the files that are good are automatically sent across the socket using our file transfer, and then the controller simply sits back and is happy because now he's getting new files that are being modified by the user in real time, and the user never knows that this is going on.
The one thing I want to specify about that is it's an incremental backup, so if they make any update to the file, it does not replace what was previously saved on that file. It creates a new one. So you literally can have a snapshot of any update to a particular file over time. So we thought that that was a useful feature.
Exactly.
When you say incremental backup, do you mean every time they change the file, you're sending the entire file again, or just what was changed, like robocop?
We send the whole file.
The whole file.
Okay.
So, yeah. Which can create problems if you think about it, because if it's a big file and you're doing it all the time, it can fill up really quick, kind of like, I mean, you get the idea, but yes.
So we actually had a more robust example to show you on our demonstration laptop, but that guy decided to not work today. But it's okay. We had a contingency, which is this one. So we'll go ahead and set it up. The first thing we'll do is you have your controller. This is your main controller. This is Splinter. At the top, you see information about your server socket. If you are listening for new commands to come into the system, we'll tell you what port you're established on, how many implants are connected to you, and then on this side, this is the actual port that we're established to listen for new files to come into the system. So we'll initially set up Splinter. We'll say we'll listen on port 8080. Okay, so we have green at the top. It shows that we're running, and this is the port that you're established on, 8080. All right, the next is port, I like 9000 for some reason, for receiving our files. So we'll go ahead and receive files. And then one option we said, we put a firewall into our actual program, because, I mean, as hackers, we should imagine other people will try and hack us. So if you don't want to automatically receive files, just deselect this auto receive files. Otherwise, new files will be coming in, and you'll get an alert just saying that, okay, I just got a new file. Okay, and you can use this if you want to connect to other controllers, or if you want to connect to other relays, so you can actually establish your bridge or your relay. You can have the controller connect out to any system that you would like. Okay, the next is your command terminal. This was from a test earlier. I'll go ahead and clear the screen. This is, at this location, you can see all these systems, all the 8 implants that are connected to you. They will show up here on your connected client side. And at this, I guess this widget at the bottom, this is our shortcuts. So we try to make this as click-friendly as possible, so you can automate a lot of the commands that you'd like for the implant to do. If it's capture the screen, if it's grab hashes, if it's record the screen, various shortcuts we included at this side. And you can also do a private terminal. We'll show you once we get connectivity. Collaboration, this is whenever you have multiple controllers connected to each other and you'd like to only talk to one person, or you'd like to only talk to certain people inside an actual red team exercise. Whenever you have your controllers connected to each other, you can correspond to each other in this side. So we just give you that option for collaboration chat. And this is our newer feature that we added into Splinter, and this is whenever you have beaconing agents, and your agents actually beacon into the controller to say, okay, what command do you want me to execute? You can specify multiple commands in this section, and you can move it down like so, add new commands, and it will execute all the commands that you tell it. And we included shortcuts. Right now, the one that we'll show you here is to establish a shell back to the controller.
It's kind of like a fire and forget missile, all right? So if you got an implant that's offline and you want it to reconnect and then have the shell established, you can just specify there, go get your Starbucks latte, sip it with your pinky out, wait, and then when the implant gets back up, it'll connect back to you. So hands-free.
Exactly. So thanks. The first thing we'll establish is our proxy relay, because we kind of wanted to say, okay, if we want to abstract the location of your controller, multiple hops, okay, which way would we be able to do that? You do that with your relay bot. So now the implant is going to connect to the relay, and the relay is actually going to connect to the controller, so that the controller is never directly speaking with the implant, but yet we still have our command and control through the relay. So we'll go ahead and establish the relay now. So to do that, you establish your implant. Right now, our jar file, we're just using a Java jar file, except once we upload our code on GitHub, there'll be executables fully running for you in Java and Python with new implants and new updates to come. Okay, so we're starting our command, our proxy. We're saying splinter-jar dash proxy. What port do I want to listen on? We'll say port 80. And as soon as we listen on port 80, which location do I forward that command to? Oh, wait. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Thanks. Yeah, I spelled proxy wrong. It's kind of like public math, just things you don't do. Okay, and on your controller side, let's go back to see your actual IP address that you're listening on, and it's 192.168.219.1. So that's what we're going to specify for the relay whenever it connects out to us, 192.168.209.1, and the port to the controller, and we're listening on port 8080. So if that establishes, good. All right, so now we have a good connection, not a connection, but the relay is up and running. And this is the IP address that the relay is listening on. It's 192.168.209.129, and it's on port 80. Okay, let's now get an implant to connect to the relay, and then the relay is going to connect to the controller. So we're just establishing the implant. We'll use the let's do -H real quick. So you can actually see we gave you various help options that different functionality you can execute with your implants. Okay, so you can use implant with beaconing, the true beacon that we're talking about. You can listen for new connections to come in, or you can do your bridge relay or your proxy. Okay, so what are we doing? Java-jar splinter PLI. Okay, so we're using the -I for the implant option, and then the IP address that I want to connect out to. So the IP address is 209.129, because that's the IP address of the relay system, and the relay is listening on port 80. So assuming this is good. All right, that's happy. That's a happy dance. Okay, so now our infected machine just connected out to the relay, and the relay forwarded that connection over to the controller. So if I go into active connections, excellent. Okay, so we have a connection that comes in, and this is kind of like your important section. So all of your systems that are connected to your relay, or all your systems that are connected to your controller, will show up in this bottom JTable here. So now we also interrogate the system who just connected out to us, and as you can see, it says it's the splinter relay, because that's the implant that we established. We had the main implant connect to the relay, relays over to us, and the IP address that we're reading is 192.168.209.129. Again, you all saw this, that this is how we established our relay. So let's go into our command terminal. It gives us some information about who just connected, and then let's actually ask, okay, so what's your IP address? Oh, let's increase the font.
Keep it green, it looks good.
Keep it green. Okay, so if I do IP config, you can see that the IP address is actually 192.168.209.128. So that's actually the infected machine that's going through the relay. So just showing you that our relay system was set up properly. Okay, let's do a beacon agent. Do you want to do a beacon? Okay, let's go ahead and show the beacon real quick. Let's do a beacon on, is this an XP? Oh, this is an XP. Yeah, because our other system died. We had other Windows 7s to show you, but sorry. Just did not, the demo gremlin got us right here in front of you. Okay, so we're going to do a beacon. So to do the beacon, we use splinter-b for the beacon, and then which IP address do I want to beacon out to? We'll beacon directly to the controller. The controller is listening on 192.168.209.1, and the port the controller is listening on is 8080, and now we tell it what beacon interval would you like me to always establish a connection out. So I'm going to beacon at this periodic time interval, and if commands are available, I will execute the commands, provide you a response, and then I'll sleep again. And upon waking, I'll do the exact process all over again. So I'll say,
You guys have a method for introducing jitter so that it's a random interval?
oh, we will actually do that. In fact, that's really, really good, and that's one of our upcoming features, and that instead of just doing every specified time, because again, in and of itself, that is detectable. Instead, you can just give us like an hour or a day, and any random time between that interval, we'll put that in there. Yeah, so that's an upcoming feature.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. It would have come in, but we just put this like 2 days ago, so we had to sleep since then. Okay. All right, so we have we'll just do it on a 5-second interval, so the beacon will wake up, he'll establish a connection to the controller. Good, looks like connection was established, and then he's going to sleep. So every 5 seconds, he's going to wake and check if there are new commands. All right, so let's go back to the controller. As you see on the controller, I'm getting new agent command check-ins. It's saying, agent check-in received from that's its special agent ID. We did this during our registration, and now 0 commands were sent over to the implant. So let's now give it a command to execute just for demonstration. I'll do, task list. Task list. Yeah, we'll just say that. Okay, so as we give you the option, you can actually have multiple commands stacked up and queued whenever you want these to execute. So you can just say add command. So I'll do task list, and then let's do netstat dash, Okay, so let's now enable both of these. As soon as these are enabled, there it goes. So the implant, whenever it checked in, is going to send you this information, and then it's going to sleep again. So this is all the information you told it. It's going to send it to you, and then it's going to sleep. Okay, so let's stop that, because we'll keep going as you told it, because that's what it's doing, it's checking in. So I just disabled its beacon check-in. Now it's just going back to sleep again. So you see the next time it's checking in, hey, are there any commands to execute? No commands, I'm going to sleep again. Is that nifty? I hope it's okay. All right, so we kind of want to do more. Let's see, I have an active connection here from a proxy. How about, no, let's back up. So another main reason for that implant is to know, do I need to establish a shell to the controller? If I don't need to establish a shell, sleep again. But now let's say we want to establish a shell to the controller. So as you see, there's only one connection to our controller. Let's hope this works okay. I'll say establish a shell, I will enable it, and, too fast. Oh, okay, sorry, we didn't see the connection come in, but as you can see, the beacon just listened to our command. We said establish a shell back to us. It established a shell back to us, and now we're able to see the direct implant that connected out to us, and his IP address is 192.168.219.131. So, showing that our beacon is working properly. Okay, so let's do a few things with our actual connected implants. One, I think it's always nice to enumerate the system, just to know what shares, what can it talk to, what admins are actually on the system. So we will give it the command to enumerate system. Okay, so as soon as we send it the command to enumerate system, the implants actually respond back to us. Let me lower the font just a little bit so you can see it better during the next, response. So the implant is actually over on its system. It's rapidly enumerating the computer. And as soon as it receives all this enumeration, it will then send us an alert. It will actually just send us a file, and we'll be able to go to the file as soon as we see it, because it's going on all on its, it's doing it on its own. All right, I also like to do capture screen, because I like to see, okay, what's actually on that computer system. So here we just, that's too small. Nick is too small. Okay, let's do it again. Oh, good. It looks like we also got an enumeration file. Enumeration file was received, so we'll go ahead and look at that. So we send it the command, capture screen. You cannot see this in red. Red is not showing up. Okay, that's better. But let me highlight that. You can see whenever I told it to capture capture the screen, it says, okay, I just received a screen capture from that implant on the infected machine. So let's go and see what's actually on those computer systems. If I say open my Dropbox that you established, FTP, I'm on port 9000. Okay. Here are the screens that we just captured, screen captures. Let me delete it. I don't know if that was too fast. Okay, let me delete that. Let me delete these also. Let's say delete. Okay, remember whenever we did enumeration of one of the computer systems, it sent us an enumeration file back. Let's go ahead and look at that file, if I can spell it right. Okay, TXT, wow, TXT. Fat fingers. Okay, so here's information that we just enumerated from that infected machine. We see this is your who am I, what are the accounts onto that infected machine. We also give you additional information about the accounts, when it was installed, what's its password information, net shares, verbose. Let's see what else. Sys services, startup. We also include patch summary. So which patches were installed into the computer system and when, so that you can actually go back. I think as Rob Fuller, and he did in his demonstration, you can actually just say, okay, uninstall this patch if it's actually up there, so I can continue to exploit the computer machine. So now, based on this information, not on this screen, you're able to determine what patches are there if I want to disable it or uninstall it. Okay, so that's enumeration. Let's do the screen capture again. Capture screen. Okay, let's now go back to our infected box. Okay, so screen capture is now enabled. So that's what's actually on that infected machine. Because this is, this is actually our beacon agent. Okay, that's good. And you can't see it, but that's actually red. So let's do, we have two agents listening to us. So this is the other screen. That's actually what's on the other screen of the other infected computer machine. And we can show you, I guess, for completeness, right? So this is one machine. I don't think I got, yeah. So this is the other screen capture that we received on this infected machine. And I think is this one, yeah. So that's what we actually got. So that's good, that's good. What else do we want to show? Okay, let's do file browsing. How much time? Okay, 10? Okay, good. All right, so we allow you to do file browsing on the infected machine. Let's go to 129, because remember, 129 is our relay system. So all of this information is being sent to the relay, and the relay is forwarding it back to the infected machine, that we actually allow you to browse that entire file system and we show it to you on our own user interface. So you can choose which file, which folder, which directory would you like to browse, and then let's copy a file from that system. Is this XP or, okay, this is Windows 7.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to users. I think it's the admin directory. What's on the desktop? I don't know if there's anything on the desktop. Let's see if there's anything. Okay, just our implant that we're testing. All right. Let's see, what should we say? Okay, let's do an echo. We'll just send it a command, echo Derby for the win. Okay, and then let's save it onto wherever it's currently running from, and we'll say test.txt. Okay, so if we go back to our infected machines, I don't know if this one, okay, there's no implant running on this one. Okay, okay, good. So that's our test file that we just sent from our command to save over to this file. So let's go ahead and change it. Let's say Adrian Crenshaw is all in the family. Why not? Okay, so let's save that and then let's close it. So that's actually on the infected machine. Let's go back to our file browser on 129. I believe this is the one. And we are in, let's go up a directory. It's trying to update. Okay, let's go back to the desktop. Hopefully it shows up. Okay, good. So that's the text file that we just modified. Well, now if you want to actually grab the file and say, give me the file, simply double click on it. And then our interface actually says, okay, do you want to download this file? We'll say yes. If you go back to the controller, let's see. Yes, so you see that we just received the test file. Let's go back into our Dropbox. Let's open it. Let's see, okay, other system. Okay, there's the test file that we actually just copied from the system, but it gets worse. Okay, let's now talk about our automatic, our orbiter payload to actually exfiltrate all files from that computer system. So remember, as we said, based on the directory that you specify, any file that is now placed there or any file that is recently modified, we're going to grab that back to our controller as well. So if you want to do that, go to orbit directory, and at the bottom, you can actually see these are the user commands, because whenever you hit enter, our controller converts that into the actual commands for the implant to execute. So I believe it's the Windows 7, so we'll say C users, admin, and desktop. So any file on the desktop, I use the star.star to say, do you want to also recurse subdirectories on that same desktop and grab those files back to me? So that's what this true or false option is. And this is my wake second. So how often do you want me to check if there are new files onto that system that have been dropped? So we'll just say every second. So now it's going to go through, okay, you see that the implant sent a command that it's commencing the orbiter payload. And now, let me minimize this. Okay, so we have that the orbiter payload has been commenced, and now he already started to send the file. So that's one file that he sent. I think that's the other one. Yeah, and this is the other file that was sent on the desktop. So let's go back to our Dropbox. And we should have a new folder called orbit directory. Yes, we do? Okay, and these are the two files that are currently on the directory that we're talking about earlier. So that's what we said. Yeah, okay, Adrian's in the family. All right, so let's go back to that infected machine. I think it's this one. All right, let's go ahead and drop a new file and name it, what would you like to name it? Louisville. Oh, yes, okay. How's that? Like that? Okay. I guess I'll just say Kentucky. Okay, so, Louisville, Kentucky. So we'll go ahead and drop this file. So we just saved it onto the computer. Remember, we didn't say anything else. Now let's go back into our system, our controller. Okay, we should have, okay, yeah, there's a new file that it received. So let's open our folder again. Let's go back to our orbit directory, orbit payload. So now we have two. And as soon as the user is interacting with any new file that they saved, any new saves will be automatically sent back to us. And so let's open there it is, Kentucky. So our orbiter payload is still working. Okay, so let's do this in 2 more minutes. Okay, there's more that we can do. Richard Baitlick on I believe it was March 24 on Twitter actually said, stealing is not just stealing. Anyone who has the power to steal also has the power to destroy. It simply depends on intent. So I was like, that's a profound statement. So one, how about we interact with the actual clipboard on that infected machine? So if you want to go and see what's in the clipboard, let's actually say extract clipboard. And if there's anything in the clipboard, okay, so that was what was actually copied onto both of those systems. That's one. The next is, how about if we now have an orbit payload that actually says, anytime you copy anything into that clipboard, automatically send it back to me. Now, this was actually kind of dangerous or kind of scary because I actually left it running on my own system. I was like, okay, I don't think this is that bad, so let me just leave it running for 2 hours. And so on my personal computer, we have really long passwords. But what do we do with those really long passwords that are really hard to remember? You save it into a special password file, but you don't really name it password file. You name it like secret or baby pics. I don't care. It doesn't matter what you name it. However, you have sensitive information that you might save in files. But whenever you want to log into your actual system or your email client or whichever protected system that you want to log into, what do? You copy from that really long password and you paste it into your actual client that you want to log into, because as a savvy person, you say, as long as the attacker doesn't have key logging on my computer system, I'm safe, right? Okay, so that's not the case anymore. So let's go ahead and enable our clipboard extractor. Okay, so now it should, good. So our implants actually said, okay, clipboard extraction is working, and it's actually checking your clipboard 5 times a second to see if you put anything new into the clipboard. Okay, so let's go back to controller. This guy's been working well. Let's go into Notepad, and let's say, Notepad. Okay, so let's copy something. Anyone say something out? Okay. Q-Kit?
Kittens.
Kittens. I like. Okay, so let's say kittens. Okay, so let's copy that, and now let's right-click and just say copy. Okay, so that's all we did. Let's go back to the controller and see what we did. Oh, there we go. So automatically, anything that you're not copying to your clipboard is automatically sent back to the controller in real time as you do whatever you want. So you can imagine if you want to test, well, how much am I copying to the clipboard on a daily basis? Run Splinter and let's see what you find out. Okay. All right, so that's not all. So let's go ahead and disable our clipboard extractor. Disable clipboard extractor, good. Okay, so that's just feedback sent back from the implant saying, okay, I just received your kill command, I confirmed the kill command, so now I'm starving those threads silently, so we just killed the kitten. So what else can we do? How about if we now inject into the clipboard? Okay, so you can now imagine anytime I want to go to, let's say, these really long URLs or so, and I want to, let's say, I just want to go to this site. I usually might copy from somewhere else, or if you're using multiple virtual machines and you want to go from one URL put into another virtual machine, you actually copy it. So let's say if I want to go to, let's give an example, bankofamerica.com. I copy it from one, I put it into my clipboard, and I say paste on another. What if we can now change your words or your characters in your clipboard to now say Bank O America, or to send me somewhere else? Because usually if I'm going to copy into that clipboard, I don't check it after I pasted it, because I say Control-V, paste, enter. There's the site I want to go to. So let's enable clipboard injector. Enable clipboard injector. So now you have the option, what word do I want to inject into the clipboard every time? Say something. Bourbon? Oh, must have been a good morning. How do you spell that? Bourbon? Bourbon, is that how you spell it? Okay. All right, so let's say, okay, let's do it again because we have 2 implants connected. Bourbon. Okay, all right, so let's now go back into our infected controller. Okay, so I'll just say enter, and now I'll just right click and say paste. Oh, bourbon, that's bad. Okay, let's go back and copy our DerbyCon kittens, yes? So kittens are still alive. I say copy, let's go back again, let's delete everything, and I'll just say paste. Bourbon. So you can see that every single time that implant is running, I can now inject into the clipboard. So that's actually kind of a scary thing, assuming what capabilities we have once we're actually on your infected computer system. So I think that's all we have in terms of time. No, user access control. Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Let's do this real quick. All right. So normally we're actually going to skip a few slides ahead. Okay, yeah, so we have two options that you can do. One is you can automatically tell the system to display the user access control, or whenever we scan all of your running processes and I see that you want to execute a command or you want to execute a program, I can now kill that, spawn my user access control, and try and spearfish the actual password from the user. So let's just do that real quick. We'll give it a title, Derby, again, yes? Okay, executable name, I always like picking on, calc, calc.exe. So right now we're just going to force it to show a user access control to the user. Okay, let's go to controller real quick. There it is. Okay, so here's your user access control. And now let's say if the user did not know, or they did not know that this is the spoofed one, let's go ahead and enter my credentials. Admin, okay, sorry, you know, public math. Okay, so let's now say a password. What password would we like to give it?
Ugly dogs.
Ugly dogs. Okay, all right, so we'll just say enter. So now your UAC goes away. Let's go back to the controller and see what we got. There it is, harvested user UAC credentials, administrator, and also ugly dogs. How much time? 1 minute? Do we have a minute? Okay, one more, real quick. Okay, so let's hope it will work for us. I want to actually say running process list. Okay, assuming our running process list works fine, good. Okay, I should get another one. Another one should pop. Okay, so let's do. Oh, looks like my Windows 7 is not responding as I wanted it to. It might show up again. 39, 44. It's supposed to come back every 2 seconds. I don't like the way it's returning. I'm sorry. I'm going to close it. It's probably going to pop up again. So every single time, yeah, it's not responding as fast as I would like, because we would have showed you. Wait. Yeah, see? Sorry. Sorry, there's a lag. Sorry about that. But okay, good. So it looks like it just killed everything. So if we actually had it running, we would have showed you that any program you specify from our implant, you say, okay, as soon as you see this program launch, kill it, show UAC, bring us the credentials, and then launch that program again. So that's just some of the things that we would have showed you if it was responding appropriately. Okay, so. Just go straight to conclusion. All right, so let's go. We're just going to run straight to conclusion. I'm sorry, we're out of time. We're out of time. We had a lot. Which one? Do you want to do this slide?
No, all the way down.
Okay, all the way down. This one for questions? Okay, actually credits, Dr. Barry Mullins, he's our actual academic advisor. Just want to say thank you very much for your assistance. Raphael Mudge did a lot of work with him. He's a great guy, works in Armitage and Cobalt, so his work is actually influential in ours. Dan Gunter, I did previous work, and we'll actually be seeing more steganography and more command and control exploitation with us coming out this coming summer. And then Weeks, actually, he spoke yesterday. He gave good advice on how do you protect your computer networks. And he also has a great blog that he speaks about how do you defend your systems and also how do you attack it. And also there's like a really good intrusion prevention system called Ambush that would actually be really beneficial to help protect your computer. So as we do exploitation, it's also good to remember how do you defend your systems. So that's just good blogs and good things to look out for. And we also think we do geolocation with that, and which programmer would be a programmer without Google? So sorry, that's about it. So questions, are there? I think we're out of time for questions. Oh, yeah. Very excellent question. In fact, the question was, do we use any type of encryption? Not yet. However, I don't know if you recognize whenever we do our actual registration between implants and commands, we actually send it, that's a key, and that's going to actually be your encryption key. So the next update that we're going to do will have encryption enabled. So not yet, but it's coming. It's coming in our update. Yes, another question.
Outside of the logging capabilities on the screen, do you actually build out text log, syslog out from the following results and the answers sent out? This would be really fun to put in the slug, and that way you can actually do really good reporting on how your command is working and use cloud to extract.
That would be awesome. So the question was, do we actually provide an output of logs and all the data that's exchanged between the controller and the implant? Am I correct? Okay, yes, we don't do that now. However, that's actually a fast addition that we can add. So we'll add that to the next one. I'll remember that. That's no problem to add that. Yeah, I think one more question. How much time? Okay, one more question.
Do you guys plan on opening it up so that the guys who are using this could develop their own payload? You guys have a ton of awesome ones. Maybe there are more out there.
Yeah, so your question was, do we plan on opening this up so other people can actually use the source code or so and learn from it, develop or do other? Absolutely, and this is actually open source, and we'll be posting the code here in about 2 weeks, in October 14 or so. So if you just follow us on Twitter or send us an email, we'll be able to tell you once we upload the code. And also the purpose is to release this to everyone so you can understand, because your true attackers already know how to do this, but the defenders don't. So that's why we want to release and be as helpful as possible to everybody. I think that's about the time that we had. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.